second. Okay, so welcome everybody for the Trees in Your Community, Trees for Tomorrow workshop, which is going to be part of an ongoing series. Autumn, do you want to share this message?
Hola a todos, si necesita el audio de la presentación en español, haga clic en el icono de globo y seleccione donde dice Spanish, si hablas español. Gracias.
And we didn't open that room yet, so just, I think we're okay, but if anybody does, you'll watch the people joining, yeah? Okay. So I'm just going to do one housekeeping message, and then I'm going to pass it over to Taylor with the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District. So as you know, the presentation is being recorded, and Autumn, maybe you can check in the chat when they get on in a second and see if they need that. But the presentation is being recorded. Feel free to ask any questions you have as we go along in the chat. And you can type them in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself. It's not a really big group. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask your questions, feel free to do that. I'm going to turn off my camera to save bandwidth, and we'll keep the mics off when not in use. If you would like a copy of this presentation or a resource sheet of the resources shared, then go to our website that I'll put in the chat. And under recent presentations on the left-hand side, you'll be able to find a PowerPoint of this presentation and also a resource sheet, which will have a link to this recording if you want to share it with anybody. So with that, Taylor, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing if you're ready. And you can take it away. Taylor is with the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District that's been working quite a bit on this project. So he's going to tell you more about this project and shade trees in general. So thank you, Taylor. We're really happy to have you on tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak today. So yes, I wanted to start off with the importance of the urban forest in a heating world. So my name is Taylor Holman. I currently work as a community conservation technician at the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District. And I've been working there for about, I'd say about a year now. And it's been extremely rewarding being able to engage the community in multiple aspects, not only through environmental education, but also through topics of urban greening and the like. So I wanted to give a quick partner overview of who was in the original project last year. So the first one was the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District, who served as the host for Climate Action Corps Fellows, which I was a part of their first cohort. So for the IERCD, we are a public agency that's headquartered in the city of Redlands, and we deal with open space preservation, wildland rehabilitation, education, and outreach to residents within our 1,300 square mile of northwestern Riverside and southwestern San Bernardino counties. We're governed by a 7-member board who are appointed by the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors, and we're supported by IERCD staff members to carry out the district's mission, which is to promote the understanding that the quality of the environment determines quality of life, and cooperation with landowners, local, state, and federal agencies, the agricultural community, environmental and community groups. We like to promote good stewardship of our soil, water, and other natural resources. Additionally, we like to provide strong education programs that will encourage today's youth to accept the responsibility of conserving our natural resources for tomorrow's generations. So next was the California Climate Action Corps. It was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom last year, and I served in January of last year, and I served with them for about 8 months with the IERCD implementing this tree canopy project in North Redlands. Additionally, we had the Common Vision Coalition headed by Mario Saucedo, which is a local community organization for North Redlands, promoting good stewardship as well as just community outreach on a variety of topics, from environmentalism to public health. Additionally, we have the UC Master Gardeners, which we have a couple representatives here today, and they provided technical support to our participants, and also instructed us just on how to care for trees and how to plan for their maximum growth. We don't want to put a tree obviously in the wrong place. We always want to put the right tree in the right place, and they have been excellent partners thus far with that. And lastly, but not least, was the University of Redlands, who also hosted Climate Action Fellows, and we worked with them doing tree giveaways as well, and community plantings. So a little bit about Where's the Shade.
Taylor,
Oh, yes.
I just want to jump in real quick, and maybe just if you can get a little bit closer to the microphone. It could be just me, but I think it's just a little bit soft, okay?
No worries, absolutely. No one else is here, so I can yell as loud as I want to.
There you go. Thank
you.
you. We just don't want to miss anything. Thanks,
worries.
Taylor.
No, thank you. So as cities have gotten larger, many times trees and other urban greenery is seen as a box to check, rather than an important component to community health. And it's no secret that summers have gotten longer and hotter. This is obviously a direct result of human activity contributing to climate change. In addition to the increased temperatures, the pollution causing it continues to build. Climate action is obviously needed now more than ever, and we need to be able to meet our communities where they are at, and bring everyone out of the heat and into the shade. So just a little brief overview of climate change and a warming Earth. Right here you see the greenhouse effect explained. The Earth has a natural greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect that we keep talking about is much more extreme. So when we get radiation or energy from the sun, it goes through our atmospheres and it gets to the Earth, gets absorbed somewhat, then some of it gets radiated back into space. And it continues to, convect and allow our plants to grow. It helps with our weather, or contributes to that. And when it's regulated, when it's at its normal stasis, then we have our, the changing of the seasons in a normal fashion, right? As we've contributed more carbon dioxide and more greenhouse gases that trap that heat, that solar radiation, that energy in our atmosphere, less heat escapes into space and stays within our atmosphere, stays on the Earth and is absorbed. And this is why we're seeing prolonged heat in our summers, or we're seeing more extreme weather events, or we're seeing the solar caps, or not solar, the polar caps starting to melt off and contribute to rising sea levels. Right here, we have the CalEnviroScreen 3.0 in environmental effects. Just as a note, this presentation will be available to the public. If you require those resources or anything that I have linked on here, feel free to contact us in the chat or email us a little bit later and we'll be able to get that out to you. So the CalEnviroScreen 3.0 was put together by the Cal EPA, if I'm correct, and they broke down by census tract how much pollution burden each census tract was experiencing, with 1 to 10 being the lowest scores, and that's typically seen in very rural areas where there's not a lot of development, all the way up into the 90th percentile. I don't think I saw anything at 100, thankfully, but I have definitely seen some ratings up into the higher 80s and into the 90s. And it combines a lot of effects. So for instance, diesel fumes that you can smell because of the trucks going back and forth on the freeways. As you'll probably notice along here, this is the this is the 60 corridor, right, or right here, and you have the 91 down here, and you can kind of follow the freeways and the pollution burdens that each census tract and the communities that live near them experience. They also list in their cardiovascular disease rates, poverty, drinking water pollution. There's so many things. I think they also list a particulate matter. So I think it's 2.5, and that's things that can get caught in your lungs and cause you to have higher rates of asthma, cardiovascular disease, etc. And obviously we don't want that, and we want to invest in our communities. And typically these are the communities that are hardest hit by pollution, are the ones also hit by socioeconomic issues such as poverty. Next is a overview. This one was made for the Riverside region, but as you can see, areas of San Bernardino County and Eastern Riverside, or I guess this is more Western Riverside County. But as you can see, they have very low canopy coverage, which is your urban tree canopies, and it goes from a score, the lowest score being 0 to 14% canopy coverage, up to 42 and 86%. And as you can see, most of the areas surrounding the freeways and areas that you would say are historically disadvantaged are seeing lower canopy coverage compared to areas that might have more wealth going into them, more investment, having upwards of 41%, for instance. And as you can see, I'm actually going to go right back to these. As you can see, there's a significant overlap between those communities that have higher rates of pollution burden compared to those that don't, and those that have lower canopy coverage to those who do have higher rates of urban greening. So I want to touch on the urban heat island effect quickly. The urban heat island effect is a phenomenon that occurs when our cities absorb heat and radiate higher temperatures than the surrounding greenscapes. And just like we were talking about earlier with the greenhouse effect, when there's higher rates of heat and energy and temperature, our concrete structures tend to absorb that, our asphalt tend to absorb that and hold on to it for longer periods of time, and then release it over longer periods, where you have at night, for instance, in an area that's like a park, will absorb that heat during the day and let it go by sundown and maybe up till about 9 p.m. If you're in the dense urban core and there's like no greenery around you, it's just concrete and asphalt, that hot summer day is going to linger on well into the night before everything gets to cool down and be prepared for the next day. So we have data from our some partners over at UCANR, which is the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resource division, and they take care of a lot of like natural ag applications. But one study talking about how shade cools urban heat islands shows that just in the shade, with an air temperature of 112 degrees, it's 95 degrees in the shade, where over asphalt, as you can see, the heat rings or heat rising off of the asphalt, it's over 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's crazy to think that just a canopy, a tree, can take off almost 60 to 70 degrees on a hot summer day. And as you can see, those communities, as we were talking about earlier, that have less tree canopy coverage are also the ones in those dense urban zones, sandwiched by freeways or major arteries, and they are not able to really get the shade effects from urban tree canopy coverage. So with that background, just wanted to talk about the North Redlands Tree Canopy Project. This is the precursor to this Trees for Tomorrow project that's going on right now, and why you're here. We really wanted to focus on stewardship, community, and education. The project started in February 2021. And outcomes from that last cohort showed 13 participating households where we had people sign up to say that they are going to be a tree steward. They're going to keep this tree in their family as long as possible or on their property, especially with these homeowners, and get them, their kids, everybody involved in really caring for their trees, because also the effects go just beyond your property line, right? As anyone has probably had a fruit tree that's overhung into your neighbor's yard, it doesn't just stop right where the property lines stop. It really does provide a benefit to the entire community. But in addition to those households and those residential plantings, we had 2 park planting events that occurred at Redlands Sports Park. We had a total of 84 trees planted, and we had some varied educational outreach through K through 12 content. And we had an Arbor Day talk and a tree care workshop last year. So our next steps, what we were hoping to do was project continuation with outreach to neighboring San Bernardino and Highland community groups. And as you'll see a little bit later, we've been doing that. We've been able to get out to more community members within district boundaries, and it's been an overall success. So with that residential outreach, like I said, we have residential stewards. It was a free tree with free installation, and it really was just free project advertisement, because it provides that tangible agency. It allows people to say, hey, where'd you get that tree? And we had at least 2 or 3 instances where neighbors saw us digging and in front of their neighbor's house, and they said, wait, do you guys have more trees? And of course, we were like, as many trees as you want, and we got to get more outreach just through the advertisement of us installing a climate ready tree in someone's front yard. We also had the UC Master Gardener mentors, and we paired those participants with master gardeners that can provide assistance concerning tree maintenance, so they're not like, am I overwatering? Am I underwatering? This tree is looking a little funky right now. It looks like there's maybe some pests on it. When's the right time to fertilize, etc. We didn't want to leave people with this tree and say, all right, good luck. We really wanted them to get the maximum benefit for themselves and their communities. We had the community climate action, where we engaged residents at Redlands Sports Park, providing 53 shade trees, and it really opened the door for other park plantings around the city. Like, for instance, in North Redlands, where they have been historically disadvantaged and have not had as much tree canopy coverage as other parts of the city. We collaborated with University of Redlands fellows to host a free tree sapling drive-through event, and I can't tell you how many people showed up from 7 to about 1 p.m. and it's just a line of cars. Everybody wanted a sapling. Everybody wanted a free tree that they could really pass down in their family and hope to see grow and be big and strong. Finally, we had the environmental education aspect, where we had K through 12 content, and it was geared at preparing our youth for environmental stewardship in their own communities. It was really rewarding because I did get to go out and teach a bunch of kids for a summer class, and they were so excited about, one, getting, of course, a free tree, but also just talking about trees, because I just asked them, I was like, what do you guys know about trees? And you'd be amazed at how much they already know, or I felt like I needed to bump up my standards. And it was really nice to know that we're in good hands. The youth are prepared for this, but we really wanted just to give them a solid foundation, and a even deeper connection to their communities and community health. So we only were able to host one workshop last year, and this was slightly dated. Actually, we were thinking only quarterly tree care workshops with experts, but we've been able to do so far, I guess, in the range of maybe 2 per month, and just being able to just provide a space for people to come in and talk with master gardeners or understand where our project is going, updates on where we are with that. So with that, I think I can just say thank you so much for giving me some time just to talk about that. And I want you to just be prepared to be an advocate for your communities, for them to be better, cleaner, and greener. And I'll leave you with a quote from polar explorer and environmentalist Robert Swan. The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. And with that, actually, I was told I have a couple more things. I'm going to talk about our current project real fast. Sorry about that. So right now we currently have 3 trees available, 3 fruit tree varieties available. The Ava's Pride Peach, the Dorset Golden Apple, and the Spice Z Nectar Plum. And we are working with the same partners, but we've increased our presence in North Redlands, West Highland, and San Bernardino. And I do like that with this current phase of the project, we were able to add fruit trees. I can't tell you how many more people have jumped on. Everyone wants a fruit tree, a tree that is able to not only provide the shade, but provide some food as well. And I don't blame you for it. It gets the job done. So we've been reaching out. We recently reached out to San Andreas High School, and we gave out, I believe, about 45 trees, free trees to the youth, and they were in 5-gallon containers, and it was amazing. I didn't think we would run out of trees that quickly. I think we were there the first 30 minutes of like a 3 to 4 hour stay, and we gave away, I think, almost all those trees just in the first 30 minutes. And then we had a lot of people sign up and for more giveaways. But if you would like a free tree, I would like to tell you that you can visit our website, fill out our survey. When you navigate, a pop-up will ask if you want to sign up. It'll say, let's go, and you can fill out the information at IERCD.org/climate-core. You can follow our Instagram to keep up with our upcoming tree giveaways at Inland Empire RCD. We actually have a giveaway coming up on Sunday, March 27th, and it'll be at 10 a.m. at Music Changing Lives in North San Bernardino. I don't have the address right now, but I believe Autumn could drop some of that information in the chat. We'll be able to get that to you. But definitely follow our Instagram if you do have Instagram. That will definitely have all of that information there for you. I think there's one last thing. Oh, there we go. We have some more events. So on Saturday, we'll be at the Cesar Chavez Resource Fair at the Redlands Community Center. Like I said, on Sunday, March 27th, will be the Music Changing Lives Soulful Sunday event. On Saturday, April 2nd, we'll be at the James C. Ramos Food and Resources drive-through. And lastly, what we have scheduled at least is on Saturday, April 23rd at Acoma Center for Earth Day, and at the Ann Charles Park in San Bernardino. So with that, I believe we'll hand it off to Maggie, or if anyone had any questions right now, I can stop sharing and switch back to that.
Great, Taylor. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? I don't think we have any new people who might need translation. So I'll just give you guys a few more seconds to type anything in the chat if you have any questions. Okay, so I don't see anything. So thank you so much, Taylor, for sharing about the project. The Master Gardeners are really excited to work with you on this project. And like Taylor said, we are here to provide support and education for the trees that you get. We don't want to send you guys home with trees without support. So what we're the San Bernardino County Master Gardeners. We're part of the University of California under the Agriculture and Natural Resources Division. And the Master Gardener programs, they're all over the state of California, and they are trained volunteers who educate the public by sharing peer-reviewed research. So we get that information from the universities out to the public, and we love to talk about growing food, sustainable landscaping, and better living through gardening. And with that, this tree project definitely falls into that category. In this case, we're going to be talking about growing fruit trees, and growing these fruit trees helps us sustainably landscape by adding tree canopy to our environment, which Taylor talked about already. And then anytime you're out in the garden, that improves your life, and it's better living through gardening. In addition to the Master Gardener program in our county, we have several other programs, the Master Food Preservers, the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, FNEP, and 4-H that you might have heard of. The Master Food Preservers are also going to be presenting. I'll talk about them at the end, but they're also going to be presenting in some of these tree workshops coming up. So we'll teach you guys how to grow those fruit trees, and the Master Food Preservers will teach you how to preserve them. We also have a seed library that I want to give a shout out to that our Master Gardener program runs. And we share donated seeds with the public, and we also do free monthly seed saving classes online. So if you're interested in seed saving, you can check our website, and we'll make sure to drop that information in the chat. But also I want to share that the second Saturday of each month, we're at the Highland Library from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and we have free seeds there. So if you're in that area and you want to come to the Highland Library the second Saturday of each month, the next one will be April 9th. We'll be there from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and we have free seeds, and you can ask us questions about anything in your garden, from your lawn to your native plants, to your succulents, to your drought tolerant trees, to your vegetables. We're here to answer your questions. And the second Sunday of each month, then we also have that same, what we call an Ask a Master Gardener time online. So if you're having trouble with any trees that you've gotten from this project, or from just trees that you have that you get in the future or that you have in your yard, you're welcome to hop on to that online time, and that's from 11 to 1 p.m., 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we take questions from all over the county about, again, anything from your smallest vegetables to your tallest trees. We'll answer the questions and share resources as best we can. And that information can be found on our website as well. So for tonight, let me just double check the chat. I think those were links. Yep. Okay. So for tonight's topics, we're just going to talk really quick about fruit tree basics, and I'm going to share some vocabulary and terms that you need to know so you can know how to care for your fruit trees. I have 10 quick tips for fruit tree success, and I'm going to talk about how Master Gardeners are here to support you going forward. In addition to our things like our helpline and our Ask a Master Gardener times. So the trees that are being given away, the fruit trees that are being given away with this project, are deciduous fruit trees. And that means they lose their leaves in the winter. And you might think, well, if they lose their leaves in the winter, they're not giving you that canopy cover that Taylor was talking about, which helps improve environmental conditions. But it has some other advantages. For example, some people like to plant fruit trees on the west side of their home that are deciduous. And when they lose the leaves in the winter, then the sunlight can get through and help warm the house and reduce heating costs. And then in the summer, they are leafed out and they help provide shade to your home. So they definitely have good environmental impacts, in addition to also providing some delicious fruit. So 2 different kinds of deciduous fruit trees, or I guess I should say deciduous fruit trees can kind of be broken into 2 categories. One is stone fruits and one is palm or palm fruits. Stone fruits have a pit or a stone. So peaches, nectarines, apricots, they have a pit inside. And then palm fruits, when sliced across, they usually have a star pattern. So those are apples, pears, and quince. It's not something you have to know to care for your trees, but it's good to know. So we have our stone fruits, which the Eva's Pride plum and the spicy nectaplume are stone fruits. And then palm or palm fruits are going to be your apples. So we have both stone and palm fruits in these giveaways. And the characteristics of these deciduous trees is they need something called chill hours to produce a good fruit crop. And the trees that the Conservation Corps and the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District and the Master Gardeners have worked together, or Cooperative Extension have worked together to choose, are ones that get the appropriate amount of chill hours for our area here in the Inland Empire, which is basically not very many. But we'll talk more about that in just a second. So if they don't get enough hours below 45 degrees, they don't produce a good fruit crop. So that's something important to know. They're, like I said, deciduous. Both the stone and palm fruits lose their leaves in the winter, and they're often sold in pots or as bare root fruit trees. So if you choose, the ones in the giveaway are in pots because it's easier to get them to people and you don't have to plant them right away. But if you're looking to buy fruit trees in the future, you can buy them between December and February as bare root for these deciduous fruit trees. And they're less expensive. So that's an option and a great way to buy your fruit trees. A lot of people buy them bare root between December and January, but they will need to be planted right away because just as it sounds, they're bare root. They don't have any soil on them, and they'll need shaping and pruning for good growth. I want to contrast this with what we're not going to talk about tonight, which is subtropical plants or trees. The subtropicals that we think of most often are citrus and avocados. They do really well in the Inland Empire and Southern California, but they have a completely different pattern of growth and care. So the things that I'm sharing tonight are for the stone and palm fruits, not for your citrus trees. So the recommendations I make are not usually appropriate for citrus or avocados. I'll let you know, but they're not part of the giveaway and they're separate care and needs. They don't need chill hours, and cold weather can cause damage to these. Other trees in this category are bananas, mangoes, papayas. So as the name sounds, they're subtropical, and citrus is a subtropical fruit and avocados are as well. They're not available in bare roots because they don't go dormant. The bare root fruit trees are sold when the stone and palm fruits are dormant during the winter time. So they can be with their roots bare because they don't have leaves and they're not full, on growing. As you know, citrus and avocados are green year round. And so if you were to remove the soil, they would suffer significantly. So you can't find them as bare root, and they don't go dormant. They're not deciduous and they have different needs. So going back to what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the stone and palm fruits, then the chilling requirement is the number of hours needed below 45 degrees for a fruit tree between November 1st and February 15th or the end of February. And so basically, when that tree is losing its leaves and it's creating its buds that are going to leaf out or flower out and make the flower that will make the fruit, they need a certain amount of cold weather in order to have that process go the right way. And lack of chilling hours causes the buds to die early. It can cause blooms to be extended. And the longer the bloom sits on the tree, the more likely disease will get in. And it can lead to poor fruit set. So we need a minimum hours. We need a minimum number of hours below 45 to get good fruit production. You may notice some years you don't get a lot of fruit, and it might be tied to how warm the winter was. There's actually a website that I'll share on the resource sheet where you can find out how many hours you get near you. On average, this one here on the upper left is Riverside. And on average, Riverside gets between 300 and 500 chill hours per year. So if you're in that area, remember that number. Pomona is about the same. Pomona area usually gets, I list Riverside and Pomona because that's where the weather stations that read these things are at. Pomona gets about the same. Pomona usually gets about 400 to 500, a little bit more than Riverside. But if you're in the Inland Empire, remember the number 350 to 500 for the next slide, okay? If you're up in the high desert, then you usually get between 600 and 1500 chill hours. So just for contrast, remember that's 600 to 1500 chill hours. And again, that's the number of hours below 45 degrees in a winter time. The reason it matters when the hours come is if we get, remember a couple years ago, we had snow on Memorial Day in Big Bear, and that late cold weather after the flower has come out and the fruit has set can actually cause more damage to the fruit tree than helping it. So there's a reason why those hours need to be between November and February. So remembering that Riverside and Pomona get about 350 to 500 or 600 chill hours, and the high desert gets between 600 and 1,000 chill hours, then let's look at this chart. So the trees that you guys got were apples, or may get, or might be interested in getting in the future with this program, are apples, and a low chill hour fruit needs about 400 to 16. And the higher chill hour fruits need up to 1,000. That's why places like Apple Valley and Oak Glen have really good apple production because they're a little bit colder. Apricots are trees that don't need very many chill hours. Figs, persimmons, and pomegranates, you see, need less than 200 chill hours. That means almost every year it gets cold enough for us to have a good crop. That's why we have really reliable pomegranates, persimmons, and figs. Other things like pears need quite a few chill hours, and it's hard to find varieties of pears that will do well in the Inland Empire. The spicy nectaplume, the Eva's Pride peach, and the Dorset apple were all chosen because they are low chill hour fruits. I'm not exactly sure the number, but I heard it being like 200 or something, very low chill hour. So they're bred to have good fruit set with low chill hours. Okay, so if you're purchasing fruit trees in the future or having trouble in the Inland Empire with cherries, with pears, with peaches, that may be because it's a fruit tree that needs higher chill hours. And if you're purchasing fruits in the future and they have a label on them, look and see how many chill hours. Blueberries are another plant that need chill hours. And I didn't realize in the Inland Empire, a lot of places sell blueberries that need 700 to 800 hours of cold. And unless you live in the mountains, we don't get enough. So chill hours are really important. The biggest problem with growing deciduous fruit trees, which would be your stone and your palm fruit trees, are planting the wrong variety that requires more chill hours than available. And that's one of the great things about participating in this program is they're selecting varieties that are good for the area. And the other problem could be not having adequate pollination. We're going to talk about that just real quickly, and then I'll get into my top 10 tips. So for pollination, just for a few vocabulary words. So to pollinize something is when something is supplied with pollen. Pollinate is to convey pollen to a stigma and allow fertilization. And then these are the two words that, the bottom words that are important, which is pollinizer and pollinator. I was very familiar with pollinators. Those are the bugs that do the good pollinating, and we appreciate them so much. But pollinizers are trees which help a fruit tree set fruit. So again, the two biggest problems in the Inland Empire, not having enough chill hours or not having enough pollination. So some of these trees may need a lot of pollinators, which most of us have in our area, but planting flowers and other native plants and other flowering plants always helps to bring pollinators in. But some of these trees may need a pollinizer because Some of them maybe, and I'll go back to that other slide, what they call self-unfruitful, which means that they need another fruit tree in order to produce fruit. If you buy cherries, you usually need to buy 2 varieties of cherries. I think almonds or almonds, same way, they do better with another variety. The ones that the IERCD and Climate Corps and the Cooperative Extension picked for you guys are not self-sterile. They don't need another tree to set fruit. What you guys have is a self-fruitful tree, meaning that it can pollinate itself with wind and some pollinators. It doesn't need another tree, which is great if you don't have a lot of space in your yard. You don't want to have to, like with cherries, for every cherry you plant, you have to plant 2 cherry trees. Or you have to have a tree with multiple plants on it, multiple types on it. And those can be a little bit challenging to maintain unless you like high maintenance trees. They're sort of like bonsai, a little bit of extra work, but can be really cool. And then there's also trees that are sort of half-half. They'll do well by themselves, but they also do better with another one. And so all the trees that you got, the Eva's Pride, the Spicy Nectiplume, and the Dorset apple, or if they add any other fruit trees, they've been selected to be self-fruitful, meaning you only need one of that type. So with that, unless you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourselves. I'm going to go into my top 10 tips for tree care. Okay, so we're just going to go through this quickly because as part of this tree giveaway, we're going to do every 2 weeks, we'll have a check-in time where we'll talk for about 15 minutes on a different topic, maybe master food preserver. Well, master food preservers will be joining us also talking about fruit preservation. And we'll be here to answer any questions about your trees. You can take pictures if they're not doing well, or you have questions about the watering or how you plant it or anything. And then we're also going to do 3 2-hour workshops where we're going to kind of divide these 10 tips into 3 different groups and really go in deep. So tonight is just a quick overview of things to keep in mind. Feel free to ask questions as I go along, but if you don't understand everything right now or you want to learn more, you can check out the resource sheet that I'll be posting on our website, or you can also attend these upcoming 2-hour workshops, okay? So really important to plant the right variety for your area. Select a tree that will get enough chill hours. So with this program, they've done that work for you. If you purchase your own, you just need to do that work. You can contact our helpline, or usually the label on the tree will have that information. And if you're in the Inland Empire, you need to get a tree that has probably less than 500 chill hours required. Make sure that the tag will also tell you if it's self-fruitful. If you have a tree that doesn't have a tag and you want to know more about it and you know the type of tree it is, reach out to our helpline and we can help you figure that out. Make sure your tree has enough room to grow. It's great to plant them next to the house, but you have to see the size they're going to get and the size you're going to keep it trimmed to, and make sure it has enough room to grow. Dwarf trees, I used to kind of shy away from them. I wanted a big tree. I wanted a lot of fruit. But dwarf trees still get pretty big at 10 to 15 feet, and they're a lot easier to maintain than a 25-foot tree. So I really am an advocate for dwarf fruit trees, and that will also be on the label. And you want to check your soil and make sure that it's well draining. If the soil is not well draining, the tree is going to struggle. You're going to dig your hole twice as wide as your fruit tree pot, and you're going to put it make the hole as deep as the soil is in the pot. You do not want to add any amendments to the soil. You want to plant it in native soil. That's because if you add amendments to the soil, the roots will grow and they won't want to leave the hole you made. And for larger trees, especially ornamental trees, it can actually make them dangerous and they can be easy to fall over. And for your fruit trees, they just won't perform very well. And I'll show you a picture in just a moment. You want to make sure you do not plant the tree too deep. You want to keep it at the same depth that it's in the pot. And then this last bullet point, you can face the dog leg or graft union toward the north to prevent the sunburn. I'll show you a picture of that. So this is these bare root fruit trees. And the bare root fruit trees are sold without any dirt. And you can see here that they dug the hole about twice as wide and they dug it about as deep. as where the old soil level was. And what I was mentioning earlier, the dog leg or the graft union, this is an area right here on the tree on the lower right. You can see it. You can also see it here on this upper picture. This is where a rootstock was grown that is disease resistant. And on the top, they grafted it together with a tree that tastes good. So what they do is they grow this tree here and they graft on another tree and they cut that tree off. So if you're able to look at your tree and see that it has, they call it a dog leg because it kind of looks like the back of a dog's leg, then you can plant this part, the sort of elbow, if you will, toward the north, because that's where they cut off the rootstock. It's optional, but it's the preferred way to do it. As they are adding soil, they're gently pressing it down. You can see again, the hole is twice as wide and they're planting it at the same depth. We'll talk more about irrigation in our longer workshops. For a container, which is what you guys are going to get for the giveaway from the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District and the Climate Action Corps, is in a container. And so with that, you're going to take it out of the pot. You might unwind the roots. Again, you're going to make the hole about twice as wide as the pot or dirt, and you're going to plant it at the same depth. You don't want to cover any of the trunk of the tree. If when in doubt, plant it slightly shallow. Don't plant it too deep. If you add things like compost and really make this big space around the tree really nice, the roots will circle around in there and they won't want to venture out into the native soil. So that's why we don't add amendments when we plant our trees. For watering tips, again, we'll go more in depth into this in our longer workshops, but you want to water it in well when you plant it. The first few weeks it's establishing, especially with this warm weather this week. If you planted a tree today, you would want to make sure it didn't dry out too much in the next couple of days because it is establishing and those little tiny roots are growing out. We are expecting to have rain next week. And if you planted a tree today and we had some heavy rain on Monday, maybe you could go 10 days or so after that rain. So you want to check the soil before you water, and the soil should dry out slightly between watering. Okay. Young trees need to be watered more often than older trees. It may sound sort of like common sense, but you know, older trees have a lot of leaves, but they have a deeper root system that's more well established, and those younger trees don't. So they need to be more watered more often. I guess they don't need more water. They need to be watered more often. And for all of your fruit tree or tree watering in general, you want to do deep and infrequent waterings once they're established. They should dry out between water, and they should not be watered shallow. They should be watered deep. And we'll talk more about that in our upcoming workshop. They usually don't need as much water in the winter, but they still do need some water. So on a dry winter like this, even with the trees losing their leaves, they probably need to be watered about once a month. For fertilizer, for the type of trees, the stone and palm fruits, when they break dormancy and they start to leaf out in the spring, you can fertilize them. You don't want to fertilize them in the fall because they're getting ready to sort of go to sleep and lose their leaves, and you don't want to stimulate them to grow. And you can just use an all-purpose fertilizer like a 10-10-10 or a 16-16-16. You don't need to buy anything fancy, and we'll talk more about fertilizer in the longer workshops. You don't need to fertilize when planting. So if you're planting now, you could go through till next spring, probably without fertilizing your trees. Some people fertilize their trees after their summer crop. So for your apple, your peach, your nectarplum, then you could, after you harvest all the fruit in the late or midsummer, give them a little bit of fertilizer, but you need to be careful. If it's too dry or really hot, that new growth can cause burning, and it's probably better to skip that, especially if we're having a drought year. So for the fruit trees you plant this spring, the first fertilizing they may get could be next spring. If you feel like fertilizing after you harvest all the fruit, the first fertilizer they would get would be midsummer, but you do not want to fertilize a dry tree, and you want to make sure you water it in well. When they're young, Better to under fertilize than to over fertilize. They usually take a few years to start producing fruit, and you run the chance of burning your trees. So you got to be careful with that. And we'll talk more about that and more about the fertilizer and what it does. Nitrogen is a leaf maker. Phosphorus is a root maker, and potassium is a flower maker. So we'll talk more about that in our longer workshops. You're going to prune your stone and palm fruits in the winter when they're asleep or they're dormant, with the exception of apricots and cherries. If you have any apricots or cherries, you would prune those and shape those in August. There's also some summer shaping you can do for trees that are about 5 to 7 years old. And we'll talk more about that in the longer workshops. But the whole point of pruning your trees is to keep them the size you want them, and also to create a good structure in your trees that will hold fruit. This does not apply to citrus and avocados. Completely different pruning. The fertilizing is different as well. Okay. But generally the rule is to prune out the dead and diseased and crossing branches. And then in our longer workshop, we'll talk about the different shapes and the pruning techniques that you can use, which include these ones here: the central leader, modified central leader, an open center or vase shape. You want to make sure you treat pests when you see them. Keep your ants out of trees because they like to farm harmful insects and keep beneficial insects out. You want to keep the branches of your trees off the ground and use least toxic methods for pest management. And our UC integrated pest management site, which is going to be on our resource sheet, has all kinds of information about that. And we're right at 7 o'clock, and we'll wrap up in just a few minutes, and make sure you stay on. We have a giveaway with tonight's workshop. So I'll be just done in just a moment, and then we'll get on to the giveaway. So if you can hang out with us for just a few more minutes. You want to make sure you keep weeds down to reduce pests. Weeds compete with the trees for nutrients and water, and mulch is a great way to keep weeds down. You want to make sure that if you're mulching, you don't mulch right up to the trunk of the tree. You want to give it about 4 to 6 inches away from the trunk of the tree. You don't want to do these mulch volcanoes. You can use 3 to 4 inches of mulch, again, keeping it 4 to 6 inches away from the tree. And you don't need to dig the mulch in. You might disturb the roots. And as the mulch breaks down, it helps improve the soil, and you can just add more mulch. It helps keep the roots cool, and it helps keep weeds down. It helps keep moisture in. If your tree is self-fruitful, like all the trees in this giveaway are, they still need pollinators. They probably don't need pollinizers. Remember, a pollinizer is another tree of the same species, but a different variety usually. And if you have pollinators in your yard and your neighborhood, they'll probably come visit your fruit trees. But you can always encourage pollinators by using least toxic pest control methods, and planting pollinator plants in your yard, both native and non-native, really help to bring those pollinators to your fruit trees. And then just check your trees, spend time with your trees. Just like us and diseases, you find things early, it's easier to treat. Observe your trees. Part of the thing about learning how to prune trees is sort of learning that shape of your tree, and it takes a little bit of time. So just step back and look at your tree, look for pests, look for ants, because that indicates that you might have some pests in your tree because they might be farming those pests. And we want to get those ants out of the tree because they're protecting those pests from the beneficial insects that can help us get rid of them. But also just spending time with your trees is good for your mental health. It unplugs, unwinds, we get off the internet, and we have a little bit of our mental health break there. So you want to make sure that, we're all hoping to get like a harvest out of our fruit trees, right? We want to make sure that we get those peaches or those nectar plumes, but even just spending time with your tree has benefits in itself, good for mental health. So we really encourage that with the Master Gardener program when we talk to people. So you have your tree, or you're going to get your tree. What's next? Get them planted as soon as possible this spring. The earlier you plant them, the more established they'll be before summer. You want to check your soil before watering. You don't want to overwater them. And so if it's still damp, you don't want to water, but you want to make sure you're just allowing it to dry just a little bit before you water. Email or call our Master Gardener helpline if you see any problems, if you see any pests, if you see any drying of the leaves, if you see anything that doesn't look right, send us an email or give us a call. And that information will be on the resource sheet, and I'll drop it in the chat as well. And just enjoy time outside with your trees. Take photos, send them to us, and share with us the joy that the trees give you. So how are the Master Gardeners here to help? We have our helpline. We can answer questions in both English and Spanish. You can send us pictures. You can call us. You can attend our online classes. We have them in English and Spanish. You can check our website. You can come to our Ask a Master Gardener times, which remember are the second Saturday and Sunday, online and in person. And then you can check out our upcoming workshops, those 2-hour workshops, which will be in April, July, and September. And then come and join us for our evening check-ins for the next through June. We will be every 2 weeks. We will open this same link, and you can ask us any questions that you have about the tree. So we'll do a 15-minute preservation workshop or tree presentation just to kick things off, and then we'll just be hanging out here for 45 minutes, ready to chat about your trees or your vegetable garden, or answer your questions in both English and Spanish. So this is our website, and we'll drop this in the chat. You can also follow us on social media. You can sign up on our website to get our newsletter where we share information about our classes and blogs about gardening and information about our Master Gardeners. And here is our helpline information as well. So with that, I think I'm going to kick it back to you, Autumn, or Taylor, unless there's any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I thank you guys for hanging out with us for a few extra minutes. But if there's no questions, just stay tuned for our longer workshops and our 1-hour check-in times with 15-minute presentations, so you can get little sort of snippets, and we'll record those and post those on our YouTube channel that we'll share with everybody who registered for tonight's event. So with that, I don't know if Taylor, Autumn, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, everybody. So we have Emmy and Erica here who have stayed throughout the whole presentation. So I'd like to give both of you a $50 gift card to a nursery of your choice. All right.
Well, congratulations. Awesome.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. Thank you.
So I think we have your emails if you registered through the Zoom link. But if you could just send your email or phone number here, and we'll contact you to get you that gift card. All right.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question, Maggie. Okay, so we have a gopher problem. So we're kind of scared to put it in the ground. I don't know. What should we do to, like, hopefully they won't attack it? I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, that's a great question. And gophers are really a challenge, and can do a lot of damage to young and even mature fruit trees. So there's a couple of different schools of thought, and you kind of have to choose what most fits what you're comfortable with. And so what those are, one strategy is there are different poisons and trapping or extermination methods that you can use to manage gophers in your yard. And another method that some people agree with and some people don't agree with are planting your trees in like a chicken wire mesh type thing that will allow the trees to get big enough. So you would make sort of like a big basket. And if you think back to digging that hole twice as wide, maybe the basket would be that large. And the reason it's kind of not controversial, but not everybody agrees, is because some people say that that metal mesh basket will limit the growth of the trees. A lot of people say that by the time the tree is big enough, if you make that basket big enough, then the metal starts to break down and by the time that the meadow starts to break down, the tree is large enough to sort of naturally not fend off, but sort of handle the gophers. Some people galvanized metal apparently has lead in it. I don't know how much lead. It could be trace amounts of lead. Some people are concerned about the lead that's in the galvanized, like chicken wire. So I'm not going to make a specific recommendation. I can just share in my yard that I've planted my trees without any hardware or chicken wire, and I've planted them with chicken wire. And I have lost a lot of the trees that were several years old that didn't have chicken wire. So I'm trending that way, doing a little bit more research about the best type of metal material. But so those are my thoughts on that. I have trended towards planting them in metal baskets, and I've heard this from other people who are pretty experienced tree people. And again, the idea is that by the time the tree is big enough to be constricted by the metal, that the metal is starting to break down. So, so that's my thoughts on that. Okay.
Okay, that's
And yeah, so yeah. Yep. Okay, is there any other questions? Maybe I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go forward to the next slide just to make sure. Oh, and these, so Joseph and Ariana were not able to join us tonight, but they're part of the Climate Action Corps, and they're the fellows for this year's tree giveaway project. Did I explain that right, Taylor or Autumn?
Yes, they joined us, I believe in January, and so they'll be with us for the rest of the year, helping us with the tree canopy project.
Very good. So that's who the two people are on the right. I'm here on the left. And then tonight we also have Autumn and Taylor with the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and thank everybody for joining and stop the recording. Unless Autumn, do you have anything else, or Taylor, do you have anything else you want to have on the recording?
None from me. Glad to join everyone this evening. So